Hey, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining InsurTech Denver webinar series. Our topic today is women in insurance, and we are so very fortunate to have assembled a panel of insurance executives from across the industry who are here today to share their insights and unique perspectives on the insurtech space. Before we begin, just a couple of administrative items for us. Please be sure to place your device on mute so you don't capture any background noises. If you have any questions, please place them in the chat. We'll be capturing questions, and hopefully at the end of the session, we'll have a little bit of time to come back and answer, and perhaps some of the questions will be integrated into the conversation as well. So make sure we try and reach everyone on those. And yes, the session today is being recorded. So you will be able to view it again or pass it on to someone who was not able to attend today. And we'll send a notice out on that for you. And then finally, for those of you who are in Denver, mark your calendars for Wednesday, June 15th. Again, that's June 15th. We will be hosting an in-person event at Bigsby's Folly down in Rhino. So look for an invitation from us, and that should be fun for us. First time we've been together in quite a while, so it'll be nice to see everybody. We have a great patio, so it'll be a great evening. So put it on your calendar. Hopefully you can take and join us. So with that, allow me to turn today's event over to our moderator, Maria Fujinami. And so Maria, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate that very much. We are so fortunate today to have these esteemed ladies join us. And the topic of our discussion today is women in insurance, specifically around InsurTech. But before I get started, I want to let you know that we will leave time for a Q&A, so feel free to start sending your questions in. But as we get started, I want to make sure that you will get to know these ladies. We're very impressed with them. And for me especially, I'm so pleased I get to ask all these wonderful questions and learn from them. So without further ado, I'm going to ask each of our ladies today to introduce themselves, to talk about the company that they're working for, and just a little bit about their background and their work experience. I'll start it off with Melissa Eaton, if you don't mind, and then Jennifer Linton and Amy Reczek and Victoria Zak.
Hi, thank you. Hi, thank you, Maria. My name is Melissa Eaton. I'm the Vice President of Customer Success at Pi Insurance. Pi focuses on small business insurance in the workers' comp space currently, as well as commercial auto. I've been with Pi since 2018, so the beginning for Pi, and I have been in insurance for about 17 years, which is hard for me to swallow. And I'm really looking forward to sharing some insights with all of you today. And so thank you for joining us. We are all very grateful for your participation.
Fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Jen Linton. I'm the founder and CEO of Fenris, and following Melissa's lead. So Fenris is an API, first and foremost, that injects insights and data. So it makes it easy for agents or consumers to have information during that customer journey when they're quoting or evaluating who they should send certain marketing promotional materials to or what products to sell. And this is my third InsurTech that I've launched from scratch. So I feel like maybe I'll get it right eventually, right? Or I'm a glutton for punishment, one of the two. But I've worked for very large insurance companies directly for CEOs, as well as now striking out first-time CEO, but third-time founder.
That's great.
Hi, my name is Amy. I am the founder and consultant of a company called Sales and Presence. And so we do something a little bit different. We work primarily with the insurance space, but we work with companies and teams to level up their power skills. So their communication skills, their relationship skills to really create the success that the individual, the team, and the company as a whole are looking for. I've been in sales and communication space my entire career, so about 21 years now. So thanks for having me.
That's great. Thank you. And Victoria?
Hi, everyone. I'm Victoria Zak, and I work for Parsyl. We are an integrated risk management and data-powered insurer for what we call essential supply chains, essentially meaning the foods that we eat and health and medicines that we need to live healthy lives. And so we use very granular supply chain data from sensors and other data sources to effectively understand, mitigate, and price risk better than has been done in the past. So we're really looking to help ensure to our suppliers of these essential supply chain goods to reduce their risk overall and therefore get better coverage and reduce their premiums. As the Director of Insurance Solutions, I've helped to build our insurance vehicles over the past 3 years. So we're a managing general underwriter and a cover holder at Lloyd's, kind of pioneering this data-driven underwriting for other insurers. And we also have our own syndicate at Lloyd's of London, where we have our own capital to finance risk in that cargo and supply chain space. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, thank you. We really do appreciate your presence today, ladies. We have several questions, but we're going to start with Victoria. This is what happens when you're the last one to introduce yourself. I'm going to go right to you. And one of the questions we've been thinking about is, how does your company address the issue of diversity? We're going right to it. And do you proactively seek diversity when hiring?
Thanks, Maria. So I'm actually super interested to listen to the other women on this panel answer this question, as I think I'm actually the most junior in the InsurTech space on this panel. I have been in tech for over 20 years, InsurTech only about 5 years. And I can say tech, insurance, historically, two of the whitest, malest industries likely, and we've all had that experience.
Yeah.
I actually remember when insuring leads and interviews would ask the kind of culture fit question of what's your favorite microbrew, as though that was, you know, something that made a great fit for our company. So for me, in the kind of the recent InsurTech space, what I think has been really promising and fantastic is sort of the rate of change when it comes to looking at hiring and making sure that hiring is diverse and inclusive. You know, I like to say that what's very important is now that there's acute sort of attention and intention to how we look at hiring and onboarding and keeping folks to create that diverse organization. Because finally, I think people have realized that having that diverse organization, you know, from the ground up through senior leaders, it serves customers better, it makes the company better, it makes our business better to have a more diverse employee organization. So, you know, now there's actually, like I said, intention around this. So, you know, at Parsyl, we have a diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, DEIB, that rolls off the tongue, right? Work group, as well as a women in technology, we call it femtech, for anyone who identifies as female. And it's really about supporting folks once they've joined the organization, and a special focus on hiring as well. So we know that during the pandemic, it was especially hard on more diverse groups, and certain groups left the workforce. So we're trying to say, okay, how do we do that ourselves? How do we change that in some way? Not solving it, obviously, yet, but that intention around recruiting at places like Out in Tech, Women Who Code, really are putting a focus on where are we spending our time. And I think the thing that we've learned, again, is that commitment to hiring and being more diverse in our hiring means we need to be where the talent is. We can't expect the talent to come to us. So we need to go find that talent that we're looking for.
Yeah, excellent point, for sure. Melissa, you want to shed some light as well from your perspective? What are your thoughts about how your company addresses the issue of diversity, and how do you guys go proactively? How are you proactively hiring diverse candidates?
So along the same lines as Victoria, thank you for sharing that information, because I think it's very, very true across the board. We are definitely more focused on, due to just the global diversity issues that we're facing today. As I said, during the pandemic and during BLM, all of the things that happened, this was a real awakening for all of us. And I think that we had to bring that into our business and into the world of work. We have a group called the Culture Ambassadors that I'm the executive sponsor for, and we have created a segment of the Culture Ambassadors that's really focused primarily on DEI. And I like the B, I'm going to add that, belonging, I love that. We have started DEI and allyship training with experts. I think this is really important. Experts who know what they're talking about, not just people who have great intention. We've learned that the hard way. We've had people with great intention and it's fallen very short. And so we're using outside vendors like ReadySet to provide us training and education on what that means to be an ally. We do have specific diversity goals in our talent acquisition. And though these are fairly new, those are something that we are keeping our eye on. But one thing that I want to be really clear on is that my concern is that you can have those goals, but it's not just saying you have those goals. How are you actually, what are you doing to meet the goal, right? And so, I think every organization, they put it on their, job description and on LinkedIn and everywhere else. But what are you actually doing to show up? So it's really leaning into this, and it's having moral courage to say these candidates, the diversity of candidates that we're getting, we need to start giving them those opportunities to show their potential and shine. And I know that even at the highest levels, especially in insurance, it's definitely an older white male regime in that arena. And recently we were definitely in all of our searches looking at the diverse candidate pool, asking people to come and bring those forward. It does take a lot more time. But I will say, I feel, because at the time I was the one person of color on the executive team, we had a couple candidates to choose from, very qualified, very good. And I finally stood up, and I was uncomfortable, I will tell you that, and said, we need the diversity candidate. We need this person because it means more to us than just this role and this leadership role. It means something to the company and all the people at the company to see someone in that caliber of leadership role and being a person of color. So again, I think it's really about standing up for those things and how we show up, and do our actions match our words, and why it is so important to have diversity at all levels. So, you need to see it in the leadership levels, you need to see it on the floor with the team. And I think this is where we're headed, and we as a world need to address that. So
that's fantastic. And obviously both have done tremendous work in that front. I'm going to direct this question first to Amy, but would love for everyone in the panel to join in. And I'm going to continue down this path still. Talk to us about the work you've done in your career or with your organization, and some of the things you've already talked about, especially obviously Melissa and Victoria, but any contributions that you've made to help support, and especially help support and encourage other women in the company or in the industry in general. Amy, you want to take this one? You want to talk about?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Yes.
Please.
And I have a different and a little bit unique perspective, as I am not in the insurance space daily. We are industry agnostic, that my company is. However, we're about 50% of our clientele are in the insurance space. And what I find really inspiring and unique about that is that there are some really strong leadership that are women coming out of that. And we work a lot with companies that have teams and management that actually have accelerator programs now for women in leadership. And that's, I think, where we come in as a company, is really working with them on their communication and where they want to go as leaders. And being able to be a part of that is really inspiring for me daily. I think in talking about lifting others up, another thing that we do is we work with so many insurance spaces with women and associations that were formed by women for women in the insurance space, that it's really easy to lift their voices and tell their stories throughout the experience and throughout the different spaces that we are working in. So I'd say that's what we do mostly, is we are inspired daily, and so we share and pass on that knowledge and those stories to others that can lift them in their journey as well.
That's fantastic. Jennifer, you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I love this panel. These ladies are fantastic. A couple of maybe very tactical things that I've seen help, because everyone's really covered more of the vision and the purpose there, but it's true. Diverse teams create better outcomes. The studies have been done. And so it's really just a good business sense. It's good business. And I like to emphasize that, because then everyone's aligned. Everyone wants that outcome. But just in terms of sourcing new talent, I found two quick things that really work well. If I am working with recruiters, I tell them that half the candidates my candidates need to reflect the general population. What is that? Yeah, that's not all white and male. So in other words, I'm forcing them to present to us qualified candidates that represent the general population. And then we're not forced into a situation where we're just choosing a narrow band, right, of similar looking candidates. And I will emphasize that talent just comes wrapped in any package, and you just have to see beyond whatever that physical presentation is, or even the behaviors or things like that people represent. Just look deeper to the heart. But another thing that's really helped us when we don't use recruiters, we'll post our jobs and we'll say very point blank, hey, there's a big list here of qualifications, and studies show that certain candidates need to meet all of them before they're willing to apply. That's not what we want. We want you, if you feel like you meet 60%, we want you to go ahead and apply 50%, because I think that is actually very much of a gender kind of bias out there. There's a sense that, I don't quite qualify, so I won't apply. That's crap, right? So by stating it, I've actually had really qualified candidates come and say, I didn't think I did meet all the qualifications, but I went ahead and applied specifically because of that language in the job description. And if anyone wants that, I'm happy to share what we came up with. But I just think a little bit of encouragement goes a long way.
And I would say that probably internally, to support women within the organization, making sure that they understand that is pretty important, not only for new hires, but the existing staff, especially if they're not seeing people like themselves in the leadership role. Those in leadership, like all of us, need to really support and raise up these ladies to join the group for sure.
And Maria, this is how I like to show up in this way. I think that, again, Amy, you guys have all really shared some great insights here. But I really believe in mentorship. Mentorship is really important, and I like to provide it, and I also seek it. I think that continuous learning and having somebody that formally and informally, you can be surprised by how organically it happens and what the benefit can be. One of the fun things that I've done with some of my women leader colleagues, we have a badass boss lady text thread. And when we need someone to just listen, or we need to ask for support, we do that in there. And it's not only encouragement, but it's compassion and understanding and really helping to elevate. I know, Amy, you mentioned elevating. I think being a woman leader can also be lonely if you don't have others you can lean on and who you can see the vision of the path of how they got there. And so that's really important to help to share that. I love to celebrate those women, especially when we talk about insurance and InsurTech, that are in non-traditional gender roles, and really kind of, work with them to showcase to everyone else that diversity is so important, because you see a lot of women in the very traditional roles for, customer success, claims, HR, marketing, those kinds of things. And so when you see femtech, when you see women engineers, when data analysts, when you see them really thriving in those roles, those are things to celebrate and those are things to share. So again, I love to expand my scope of influence by doing that through mentorship and showing up for those underrepresented areas.
That's great.
I want to just totally echo what Melissa just said, that representation and seeing it, we all know, is so important. We oftentimes as Parsyl get asked to speak at events about, again, technology and insurance, a lot of times webinars for people in London, which can be even whiter and maler than in the US. And my senior leadership team is always like, Victoria is going to give that presentation. And it's always the women after the webinar who come and talk to me and want to be linked in with me and want to understand what we do, because they're finally seeing another woman out there. And it's just important to be that encouraging, to your point, and give that platform.
Absolutely. Well, thank goodness for you ladies bringing in a voice. What are some of the hurdles that you've seen or you dealt with in the InsurTech career, and what did you do to overcome them? I'm going to direct this question first to Jennifer. I know that she's had lots of experience with VC, and I read something, and you'll be able to elaborate much better than I can, but less than 2% of VC dollars go to female founders, something of that nature. And I'm amazed that that's still happening. But can we talk a bit about what some of those hurdles are? And can you give your perspective?
Yeah, it's shocking to me still. That's been a number that PitchBook, which aggregates a lot of the deal flow, has consistently reported. Any way you look at it and slice those, there's a lot of money flowing into InsurTech, and it's not going the way it should, in that female founders are significantly underrated. And it's even worse if you're a female founder of color or a minority, right? So I think in terms of some of the hurdles that I've seen, I mean, to me, that's still a lot of the research that goes into this is so cool to read and understand, but it still needs to be addressed. And there's really two ways this can be fixed. The first is a lot of the research, like Harvard Business School has done the research to understand that when females are placed in front of venture capitalists or even pitching to their boards, right, for investment, because you have a great idea for the company, we are asked questions about mitigating risk instead of looking at how big the opportunity is, whereas the male will get, wow, this is great. How are you going to go capture this opportunity? And the question set is just a little biased. And they found that time and time again. And so the answer there is you choose to answer, just like a politician, you choose to answer the question you wish they'd given you, right? By turning it and by helping them see, yes, you can be that leader, that maybe you're changing the way they're viewing you a little bit, because you're going to frame the question up the way that you wanted it to be pitched to you, the way that should have been pitched to you, because you're standing on your own 2 feet in front of them with the reasons and the rationale. And I don't know a single woman that ever pitches without knowing her numbers cold. And
That's right.
And actually, that's the other thing that I think is the hurdle. Just to go on a personal note, I think we do. I personally have gone through this as well, where I've had anxiety or panic attacks or doubt, self-doubt, right? And so those are some of the hurdles that we put in front of ourselves sometimes as well, is we just, sometimes maybe we haven't seen enough people like us be successful. And so we wonder, what are we doing why can't we, why can't we get ourselves, right, to believe as much as other people believe in us? And there will be moments of doubt like that. And so again, I guess, in terms of that hurdle, just make sure you've always got that core support system, your badass, female founders or a spouse or a partner, someone that is going to believe in you more than you will at those down moments, because you'll come through them, you'll be fine. But we certainly do still have biases and things like that, and money makes deals happen. So that's an area I'm super passionate about. If there are any females thinking about starting their own companies or wanting to look into that, please reach out, because I have curated some very interesting relationships with investors that I think do see past, right, that typical bro investment culture that you sometimes can see.
That's great. That's great. Victoria, you want to add some perspective too?
Yeah, I was smiling, of course, because some of that self-imposed hurdles can absolutely come in. I came into InsurTech with 100% tech and 0 insurance background whatsoever. And so of course that felt like a disadvantage, and insurance is complex. There's too many acronyms. There's too many compliance rules. There's just too much to try to understand, so that capacity of like, I don't even know what I don't know, was just something I put in front of myself every single day. I was oftentimes the only woman in the room. Everyone had been doing it forever. And then finally, I just flipped that on its head and gave myself the permission of, wait, why does it have to be done the same way that you all have done it? Why can't we ask the question of, is that the right way? Can it be done differently? And basically, it's the whole point of InsurTech, right? Is to say, yes, this very old, staid, traditional industry that's been around and supportive for a long time, great, but we can do something really different. And so I think that taking away that as like that imposter syndrome, or I don't know enough to ask the question, no, ask the question, because if you think there's probably a better way to do it, there's a better way to do it.
That's awesome. Which leads me to the power of the female voice. And so what I mean by that is, let's talk about how does that voice differ from the male voice? Because it does to some degree, right? And how do you elevate the voice at the table for someone who doesn't get enough airtime, right? So let's talk a little bit about that. And I'm going to start with Melissa.
I am very passionate about this because I think this happens very frequently. And so what I love is this roundtable of amazingly strong women who are here to talk about this. You know, in our space, 37% of small business owners are women, and 30% of those are minority business women, or owners. So whether we market towards that or not, we're influencing the outcomes. And so we do celebrate our small business owners, and we celebrate women and their voices and what their passions projects are in terms of their small businesses. But you know, back to the table and having a voice at the table, I recently had a colleague bring this up to me, another female, and she said, I wish I made this up, but she said this. She said that when she comes to the table and when women leaders come to the table, we look at the table as a discussion, and we also look at the table as round. So it's an inclusive table, right? Where we all get a portion of that, right? A portion of that circle. She said, she's like, men tend to come to the board table as a long rectangular table. Well, where their voice is at the top and everyone's kind of at the side, on the sidelines. And so how does that make you feel? And how do you feel in those meetings? I think, again, when I talk about allyship and behaviors and how you show up at the table, I think we have to model those. I have caught myself, and I'm embarrassed by that, sometimes talking over another woman while they're talking, which is mansplaining 101, which we all hate. So I have to show up in the right way. And when I hear someone's voice being silenced or sidelined, I need to stand up. It's an opportunity, a teaching moment for everyone. And I think that's really something that's very important, because behaviors will not change unless they're called out. And they can be done in a way that is with a lot of compassion and care, and really with class and grace, and that you're making sure that you are empowering the person that you're trying to help and be an ally to. And like I said, not, woman-splain over them. But really, I think all of those perspectives and experiences, like we've all been talking about today, really matter. And we add value to the conversation, and know that you deserve to be there. Show up in that way. Know yourself. Trust your voice.
That's right. Powerful female voice. Amy, I know you've done so much work in providing inspiration to women leaders. What is your perspective?
Well, I was just going to say, mic drop to Melissa there. I think we could just take that all the way and say that's amazing. let's roll with that. So that's great. And I might just take that boardroom analogy. That was wonderful. And so spot on. Yeah, and unfortunately, but a really good visual of how we do think differently. And I would say, to add to your endpoint there, Melissa, on really speaking up and noticing when people don't feel like they are empowered to have a voice, to recognize and to be very intentional about telling them that they do and reminding them that they do. I know a lot of work that we do is just that. we go through all these trainings and we do the things, but then we always have to remind them of how amazing they are because of that imposter syndrome that does tend to sneak in. I also think too, research shows that women who want to be executives and want to advance in their career, it's found that they have to have a group of female leaders around them to do that. So the more that we can design these groups, the text threads that we do, or the emails just to call people out and say, you're a badass today. We all have those, but to also expand those to people maybe we haven't talked to in a while, and just let them know that we're thinking about them and that they're doing great things, I think is really valuable as well, and going out of our way to recognizing that. And I also think that we all do what Melissa had talked about in overstepping a bit when we're talking, and really recognizing where our voice lands and when we should talk and when we should hold back to really give the spotlight on other people to advance.
That's great. I often thought, as I saw myself sitting in a boardroom, almost like I needed to ask permission to speak, right? And that's not the case. We should feel empowered every time that our voice counts in any situation. Great insight, ladies. That's fantastic. So I will ask each of you this question now. What's the one, and this is a difficult question, obviously, because there's so many things that you've had in your career that you've gone through. To answer this question might be challenging, right? But what is the one piece of advice that you received that stuck with you or helped you in your career? You want to start, Jennifer?
Yeah, sure. And the funny thing is, this one actually didn't come from a professional colleague. This was something my mom had cross-stitched that I grew up with in my room. And those are the formative things that stick with you, right? But the saying was, I never make the same mistake twice. I make a new one every day. I went, and that's something I'm trying to bring to our team as well, as the failure. That's not a failure if you learn something from it. And I want you to go and make mistakes. I want you to feel safe, like there's a safety net there, and go. Or you can't be bold if you don't take a leap, a small leap or a big leap, be what that is. But I don't know. I tried to tell that to my team, and maybe I should take up cross stitching to really get the point across.
That's great advice, though, making them feel comfortable that they're in a safe environment where they can make mistakes and learn from it. That's fantastic. Victoria, you have one for us?
I do, and it's going to be a similar theme, actually, Jennifer, which is fantastic. And again, to your point, not sure that it was actually a colleague, but also something that my kids help reinforce every day. And it's to always adopt a growth mindset. So they learn very much at school that when you say something like, I can't do this, or I don't know this, you add yet at the end of it, so that you're always learning, you're always improving. You can admit the mistakes, and through hard work, you can improve. So not over relying on, well, I know I'm pretty good at this, and kind of overcompensating, owning that we're going to make those mistakes, and through hard work and a growth mindset, we can improve. And I think that's really important, because that growth mindset can translate into an inclusion mindset. I don't know how to do everything to be inclusive yet. I'm going to make mistakes, but I can own that mistake and continue to get better and continue to make people feel included as I go forward.
That's excellent. Amy?
Yeah, I think one of mine was actually from a mentor that I had early on in my career. And it was, if there's a problem that arises, which inevitably that will happen, don't come with just the problem, also come with a solution. And if you don't have a solution, come with a discussion to figure out the solution to find it. And that has really helped me in looking at different things. If I come up with a hurdle of, okay, well, this is a problem, and I don't stop there, but what are the 5,000 solutions that are possibilities that we could take the next steps on?
That's great. That's great. And Melissa?
I love what Jennifer, Victoria, and Amy have shared already. I'm like writing them down. I'm like, oh, these are all amazing pieces of information. It's hard for me to pick just one piece of advice as well. But I think the most relevant one, especially in today's world, is embrace the change. Things don't stand still, and action is really important, and movement is important. And so I am trying really hard to be very grateful for the present, but also be really excited for the future. And I think about change in different ways, and having to flip that narrative and sharing that with my team has been really exciting to see how they can take what could be perceived as an issue, a failure, and make it into an opportunity and grow it into something that is so significantly more impactful. So that's what I would say, is really embrace the change.
That's fantastic. Well, I'm going to see if we have any questions. I thank you for sharing your thoughts, your perspective. Fantastic group. I feel like next time we need to do this, in person at some nice event, so we can actually have a cocktail and talk for hours about, our experiences and the insurance world as we see it. Do we have any questions?
Yeah, I'll turn back my video back on. My name is Emily. I am a volunteer for InsurTech Denver and with Slice Labs, but based here in Denver. So our first question here is, what style or perspective do women bring to an organization? Who wants to take that one?
Excellent.
I will add, I think one thing that's super interesting that was mentioned earlier was that idea of the collaborative nature, where women tend to always want to have additional inputs from folks, sometimes read the room a little bit better to see who is being quieter and who needs to speak up. And I think going along with that is sometimes a little bit of that curiosity, right? So I don't assume I know everything all the time. And so I want to ask more questions. And I think kind of having that constant sort of intellectual curiosity, how do we solve this problem, can actually, again, get to a better end solution by not sort of fixating on the first and loudest suggestion that kind of comes out.
Yeah, and I would agree with you, Victoria. And I would also add that I think that women tend to bring a resourcefulness to the solutions. A lot of us are mothers and you have to figure something out, and I think we have an ability to do that. And I think we also have an ability to really look at all the perspectives and kind of weigh the benefits and the consequences of actions. So I do agree that the collaborative nature, the curiosity, the ability to be resourceful and come to really and I don't want to say compromise, but maybe more of a integrated solution that is really one of those that may be something that no one else has really thought of.
That's great.
All right, the next question is insurance favorable to women in building a career? If so, why?
I'll jump in, but I think I never know whoever thought they'd end up in insurance to start with, right? And so we found ourselves here, and there are opportunities. It's just ripe with opportunities. So you can be an actuary, you can be in the finance side, you can be in the marketing side, or the operations or claims. I just think it's such a unique and diverse industry. And it's actually very counter-cyclical as well to the rises and falls of what's happening in the marketplace. So I think when you look at any organization or industry as well, where just look at who the primary decision makers are. Buyers tend to be female, right? I think more than half of the households in the United States, the female is the financial decision maker, and doing a lot of the research. So all of those things to me just point to insurance is about to have its renaissance. I think, right? There's just been a lot of opportunities for change and improvement. And I think that means that there's lots of opportunities for anybody, right, to take a leadership role or to expand their career and their professional and personal perspectives.
I have found it to be very fulfilling too. After working for 26 years in the insurance industry, there's so many places within the industry that you can go to, and it is fulfilling.
You won't meet any better people either, colleagues. So
Right,
it's
that's
a nice
right.
place to be.
And I do think there are multiple growth channels as well. Like, so as Jennifer mentioned, there's a plethora of options that could fit your competencies and your passions, but there also are multiple growth areas within each of those, right? So that's the thing that I think is really important. And I also think that it's very important in today's world. You know, insurance has been a very traditional form, right? Now, InsurTech is not, but insurance in general. And so with the pandemic and with the remote worker and working from home, you're seeing a whole new view of how we look at this industry in general and how it's supported. And there are a lot more opportunities, I think, than ever. And there are a lot of people in insurance looking for other opportunities as well. And so you see a flood of folks coming into InsurTech because they're looking for something that's a little more exciting, a little different. They're looking for change, looking for the ability to use their creative juices. But I do think that for women in general, it's a great place to be. And even running your own insurance agency, you can be your own small business owner.
That's great.
All right, the next question. Do you think your organizations understand female customers, either B2C or B2B, because you have female leadership or executives?
I'll take this just from a sales side of things in general. In talking to clients that are women, I think leaning on what Jennifer had said earlier, we are balancing a lot of hats. And to Melissa's point, we have children running around and all of those things. So we know that, and we can see that easier of what they might need and how to guide them in a way that possibly a man would not see, to give the value that they're actually needing for what they're wanting.
I think that we could do more in that area. I mean, I think we do customer persona work, which I think a lot of you probably have done, where you're looking at the different types of customers and what that persona might look like. And so how do you target that, but not necessarily the female voice to that. I think, again, there is work that needs to be done at the executive level in terms of, equalness in terms of gender, as well as diversity, other diversity motions, and how that actually will play in the future is really important. But I would say it's not to the point where it probably could be, where it could be actually making a really impactful to your outcomes and to your business goals and your growth.
I'll just throw my 2 cents out there, but I think it's only been in the last 5 years we've used the word customer. It's risks or policyholders. It's like they don't exist, right? So I'm happy to hear that we are all we've evolved and we're moving that direction.
All right, is that you, Maria? Our next question: how has COVID and the work from home revolution changed your approach to managing and leading?
I was on a different panel earlier, and I had talked about this. Before COVID, we were really focused on the 2 different office spaces, the physical office locations. Then we went remote. I have previously managed a team of over 750 people, and 75% of them were remote workers. So I, as a leader, had more experience in that and more trust. I do think it's a shift in how we view our employees. especially on the customer success side, and what they can do and accomplish. And we've really, because small business owners were impacted by COVID, we were really having to really pivot and be able to support them in different ways. And so we did that through listening, really trying to anticipate what their needs could be. And we, there was no playbook for this. So we had to, go out on a limb and try to do what we thought was right in order to take care of them. And we followed up with them. We had conversations where sometimes they would call us if they didn't know who they were calling, and they'd be like, is this a real person? We haven't talked to anybody, for weeks. And then thinking that they're calling the employee, unemployment office, and they're actually calling us, was interesting. But again, I think that, like I said, moving to a remote first workforce has been interesting. We've grown at Pi in terms of the number of pioneers that we have by 100%. So we were at about 150 when COVID hit, and we're actually over that. We're at 400 people today.
I'll add an interesting one from kind of a true B2B buying experience. We actually were set to launch our first insurance vehicle and policies in April of 2020 at a large show that then subsequently got canceled because of COVID. And we did so much work with capacity partners at Lloyd's of London, which is a completely still in real life, face-to-face kind of marketplace for very complex risks. And it was a broker walking up. I have pictures I show everyone with an attaché case and papers to talk about this really complex policy that they needed to get written. And that changed overnight. And one thing that was actually kind of great about being the new kid on the block, being an InsurTech, not having done it before, is we seamlessly moved right into, you can't be there in person. We knew how to do everything digitally. We could support all of our employees to work from home. And so we actually almost flipped the switch faster than insurance companies that had been doing this a lot longer than us. And it was, to your point, a great benefit for employees. Work where you need to. You need to go home with family for months at a time. That's totally fine. And again, coming from tech, I was so used to that. We had all the tools. We had everything we needed to keep communication running. And so it was almost eerie how seamless it could be. And then watching some of our other partners sort of be like, my systems don't work, I can't work from home. And so it was kind of a foretelling of exactly how we were going to need to adapt, as Melissa mentioned.
All right, our final question plus comment, which I'll mention. What advice do you have for your colleagues in supporting diversity in your organizations? And also, Melissa, they want to know where your ring is from.
My ring is from my badass bosses, the badass girl bosses. I think a shop in the Highlands if you're in Denver. So.
I'll just add one quick comment to your point. It's about committing to, as Melissa said, committing to adding diversity, equity, inclusion, but then how are you measuring it, right? So it's, we've had OKRs on the level of our revenue goals that are around sourcing candidate pools, making sure we're hiring, et cetera. We didn't always meet them, full transparency, but there's a little bit of how are you making sure that you're actually measuring how well you're doing of actually supporting and bringing that into your organization.
I think that's super important, what you just said, Victoria, in terms of the measurement, because the other thing is we could look at our overarching diversity index and say, oh, we're at 47%. But when I just mentioned this, when you looked at the exec team of 20 people and there's only one person of color and 4 women, that's not what we're talking about.
That's right.
So I'm just looking at the attendees. Elizabeth Buckman, it looks like you have your hand raised. I'm going to unmute you if you have a question. Oh, wait, no, hand went down. Maybe not. Raise it again if you have a question. Otherwise, Maria, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you. Well, this was fantastic. We are so privileged to have this time with each of you, independent, fantastic, inspiring ladies. I'm sure we will be doing this again. We will come together. But thank you. You've inspired us today, and hopefully our audience as well. Thank you. It's been a fantastic time spent together.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you so much.
Very inspiring, ladies.
Thanks, everyone.